And welcome to the Grindhouse, a talk show about RPG gaming, comics, movies, and pop culture. My name is JC, your host. With me tonight, I have my co-hosts Pat O, GM Mike. Unfortunately, Epi could not make it this evening, and we have Terry with us, our NASA conspiracy theorist. There we go.
I'm the NASA mole. I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
All right. So, as we usually do, let's go around for some quick introductions. As I said, JC, host with SolarianGames.com. If you're interested in checking out the newest version of Top Secret, that's where it lives, along with some of our other great games like Anarchy, Spooky Beans, Tales from the Fallen Empire, and other assorted things. Terry, it looks like you're next to me.
I am next to you. I'm Terry Mixon. I'm a science fiction author and apparently still a NASA mole.
Awesome. Pat?
Hi, my name is Pat O. I am a podcaster and filmmaker from Chicago. You can find me on Twitter at DrX2112.
All right. And last up is our pal GM Mike.
Hi, I am GM Mike.
Thank you for that.
We're glad you're here today, Mike, because after you left that 1 second voicemail, it sounded like a couple of thumps. We were making the guess that you might have been kidnapped. So we're glad you're here.
Glad I could make it.
Awesome. We're glad too.
Mike again. You'll send $13,000 to this account.
It's okay. So it might be a discussion for later, but I can't remember the name of the site. But there's a site that you can go to, put in other people's voices, and after a certain amount of time, it will create an AI voice that sounds exactly like that person. So that's pretty scary. So, you know, if we really wanted to be evil, that's something we can do. But
that's cool. If I'm going to send any hostage announcements, hostage notes that way, it's going to be George H.W. Bush. If you would like to send $13,000 to get your friend back.
I like how it's 13 grand. Like, we're not going to overshoot it here. We're not going to ask
no
for
idea
more.
Where I
we
came
can ask for more, we won't get it, but we're pretty sure we can get 13 grand for this guy.
That's an oddly specific request.
It's a realistic goal. I mean, it's cool.
Right.
Car payments, I guess.
So tonight we will return to the Gygax 75 challenge and kind of talk a little bit about what we've done. We're also going to talk about alignment in RPGs, kind of a hot button topic. We'll give our opinions and you can either ignore them or go, hey, you're absolutely right, and give us $13,000. And I guess we'll be skipping the Ryuutama. I guess that's, or Ryuutama. It was one of the discussions for tonight. Like I said, Epi couldn't make it. We'll definitely table that for another time. All I can think of is like RYUU Ryu from like Street Fighter. Just and then let's see. Oh, and then our movie of the week, 1978's Rollercoaster. And Pat will be talking about that later.
77. It actually came out the week after Star Wars.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. So very appropriate for today.
Competition. Oh yeah, today is May 4th. So again, may the fourth be with you. I haven't heard that enough today on Facebook, Twitter, every other.
Glory to the other franchise today.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out here. How do I? Oh, okay, I'm going to hide that. And just a little bit of self-promotion here, patreon.com/grindhouse_media. If you want to send us $13,000 so the kidnapped victim can live. I probably shouldn't say that live on TV, but, hey. Next up is youtube.com, show us your crits. That's actually probably what you're watching right now. If not, you're probably on the other one, twitch.tv at Grindhouse Media. So lots of ways to listen to us babble. And actually, something I'm going to be doing is taking the audio recordings of these, putting them into Anchor, and just basically keeping this as like an audio podcast as well. So having a
Wow.
couple different places. Yeah. Because, like I said, time on my hands and all that fun stuff. Speaking of which, before we go into it, I was going through my videos I've created for previous streams, and I found one that I was quite fond of, and was just hell. I share it because it's not like I don't show us all kinds of other stupid videos on the stream. So sit back. I think this is at least a minute long for a Star Wars game I ran a year, 2 years ago, but we did a really cool bumper for it. I'm going to play it now. I miss doing epic things like that. And Terry, you saw your name on there cut off
I
towards
did.
the bottom. Yeah, it's you were part of that stream.
I was.
I think you've been part of pretty much all my major streams. Come to think of it, the Aliens ones,
Star Wars,
Stargate,
SG-1.
Yeah. All right. But anyway, I was just kind of looking at that today, going, "Wow, that's actually when I could put time into doing cool shit for my streams." Now it's just kind of these like 3-second like. Ripping off 1970s ads and putting Pat's name on them. So that's
the early days when you wanted to put all the time and effort to make it just right, to now where you're jaded and old and you're like, I don't have time for this. 3 seconds. Here we go.
Yep. There we go. All right. So let's actually jump over to the Gygax 75 challenge, which I think really at this point, 2 of us can probably speak out to it and the other 2 can critique. But definitely. So, Mike, do you want to go first, or should I go first?
Well, I'm a little ashamed to admit it, but I had a writer's block or a gamer's block or something. I mean, I can show you what I have, but there's not really a lot there. And then I got stuck, and I came back to it a couple of times, and I couldn't come up with anything. I got nothing.
Well, maybe we can help you brainstorm something there and get you back on course.
Yeah,
Sure.
Sure.
All right. Let's see. I think you should be able to share screen if you have something you want to share.
Sure. Like I said, there's not much to share, but I'll show you what I have, and then maybe you guys can comment. Hang on. Let me see if I can share screen here. Yes, I understand. I'm sharing my screen. And there you go. Hopefully you can see it.
Nope.
You see it in a second. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
What did you make that on?
This is called Dungeon Craft. Let me see. There it is. Dungeon Craft. It is a
Dungeon Draft.
What's that?
Draft, not craft.
Oh, you're right. Dungeon Draft. Oh, it looks like I need to get my eyes checked. Dungeon Draft.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah, that is really cool. And is there anything you can talk to so far about it?
Yeah, sure. I can tell you. I mean, it's mostly in my head, so you're going to have to use your imagination. But this is an ancient ruins that was found. This is based off of my original concept of world building, where this was an apocalyptic event had happened. So the adventurers would be coming in through a cave here, and be finding an ancient ruins that has architecture that hasn't been seen before, some kind of engineering advancements that were lost over time, such as blocks being placed together so closely that you can't fit a piece of paper between them. Just a superior craftsmanship and engineering that obviously is a time long forgotten. That was my concept. So they'd be coming down through what I called the Great Hall. These alcoves here would probably have statues of ancient gods or deities that were long forgotten. And then they would encounter the first two rooms. I mean, I was going off of the Gygax 75, and he said, 6 plus 1d6, I think. But I came up with this level would have, it looks like 5 rooms. So these first 2 rooms would probably be an armory and then a barracks. And they'd find all kinds of old rusted armor and antiquated weapons and stuff like that. Once they got to the end of the hallway, they would encounter 2 more statues, and this is where there's actually a puzzle. There would be some ancient language written beneath each of them, and in order to bypass the puzzle or to get around it, they would actually have to speak the names aloud in the correct tongue, like a dwarven tongue. And if they aren't able to, if they don't immediately catch on to it as they walk down here, they're going to hit a pressure plate, and then on this area, a huge block of stone will block off the passageway and they won't be able to get any further. And same goes for this one as well. If they come down here and they don't say the name beforehand, a large block seals off the passageway, so they aren't able to get any further. So they could probably figure out, I hope they could figure that out pretty easily. But like I said, this is still kind of just gestating in my head. I hadn't gotten very far with it. But at any rate, once they got past the hallway, this would be a large chamber, like an ancient dining hall or feast hall where it looks like great celebrations took place, maybe shields hanging on the walls, maybe an ancient fire pit or something along those lines. And then the staircase leading down to the next level. And then it looks like it cuts off on the bottom here. Let me see if I can get the other staircase. There we go. And then there's another staircase leading up to the upper floor. So this would be like the middle dungeon, and there'd be one above and one below. And that's about as far as I got. And I started scratching my head when I was like, well, what's going to be above and what's going to be below? And that's pretty much where I hit a block. So that was what I was able to put together.
One of the things that I can see looking at this that raises questions in my mind is you've got 2 choices and 2 directions you could go. But what they find on the other end is exactly the same thing.
Yes.
Maybe something should change depending on if they go left for the evil god, right for the good god, or whatever difference there is. Whatever is in that central dining hall changes depending on which direction they've gone to get there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Terry. And I just before we started, I looked at the map and realized how asymmetrical it was. I mean, it's like a mirror copy from the bottom to the top. And I don't know if I did that intentionally or unintentionally, but I wanted to try and break that up a little bit and see if I could make some changes. But I like your idea of, I don't want to say the lady and the tiger, but yes, 2 distinct different ways that you can go, and each one will lead you to a completely different area.
Well, it makes sense that if you were designing a temple, there would be some element of symmetry to it. So I don't think you're off base there. But what you could have, given your background, is you could have an environmental change, right? You could have a cave in, you could have a collapse or something. You could have something that's flooded, or you could have something that is damaged by the years or whatever. You said that this is a post-apocalyptic setting, correct?
Yeah.
So you could have that, or you could have something that was repurposed by a previous band of adventurers or people that took up residence in the cave, or monsters or something. You talked about going up and going down. If you go up, how closer to the surface are you going to get, and then what kind of changes would you experience because of that, right?
Interesting.
If it's the temple, and when you think about it, like, if you're in a temple and you're going skyward, what's the thought process there, versus if you're going deeper into the ground, how might that have ritualistic implications, right? Going up versus going down, depending on what it's a temple of.
Right.
And that's all the input I kind of have.
If you were going up and that was the path to the goddess of light, or down to the goddess of darkness, that would be a good split type thing too as well.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good idea. My original idea when I started to map this out was the theme that I had in mind was kind of Indiana Jones, where it was going to be a temple filled with ancient relics and dangerous traps. That was pretty much what I had started, or my concept was, when I started putting this to paper, so to speak.
Wow, that's great, Mike. I mean, again, that looks fantastic. The presentation is great, and you've actually, I don't know, I think you've gotten a lot further than I have, to be honest, with mine. So here, let me go. I'll share mine.
Okay.
So my dungeon is like a 13-year-old's. I just read a Playboy magazine dream dungeon. That's kind of the best way to explain it. So,
boy, you're sure setting this up good. I already have expectations now. So we're going to see how well you meet those expectations.
I'm going to see where he was at when he was 13 versus where I was at when I was 13.
That's even better. That's even better.
So if we can see that. So this
looks
is
like a starship, big freighter, the engine's in the back.
So what I did is I actually researched actually didn't call it research. I called it a Google search, and looked up the various statues of fertility goddesses. So this is like one of the major ones, like the
right, the tits with the yeah.
Exactly. So here we can see that there's there's a healing pool, there's botanical gardens, and again, this has been abandoned for like centuries, so the PCs will stumble upon it. But the top part is it's basically like clergy space, and just something that would have been left over. Right now it's like controlled by ghouls and cultists. And then as we go further into the dungeon, there is another goddess shape that I stole, and now we're on the second level of this, with the contemplation room, worship space, the baths, prayer rooms, and rooms for the high priest and high priestess. And there's a cleansing space here, so when you come down the stairs, you can like get clean, so you could go into the worship space, probably like leave your clothing behind. And then for my last trick, this one here is another goddess, which you could kind of
I think I'm seeing a theme here.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yep. So the bottom level actually has punishment rooms, a hall of confessions, a prison, a hall of pain. There's ghoul rooms down here, hall of woe.
So I just need to know, what made you label that one particular area the tool room? Now, just take a moment to think about that. Don't go with the obvious, okay? Just come up with a good answer that isn't so obvious.
Well, it's attached to a torture chamber, so I kind of figured that's where they'd keep their torture tools. Like their whips and their chains and their
Yeah, this says a lot about you at 13, sport.
Yeah, this says a lot about me at like 55. So this is and then my notes here are pretty much alien metals, some of the iconic monsters that we had to choose, because we had to do 12, I think, of them. So I did like shambly mounds, spores, ghosts, giant rats, living statues, even threw in some obscure things like crypt things and spawn of Caiuses, which I don't know if anybody remembers those from first edition. And then there's an acid pool, a frictionless floor, teleporters that strip you nude. That's on there. That's right there.
That's not a bug. That's a feature.
So, but just think about it. You're on the third level and you're going into the punishment room. This is sounding like bad fanfic already. And you step into the teleporter and pop, you're at the top. Okay, different words, phrasing.
Phrasing.
And I can't even
Yeah,
think of
yeah.
a word. And you end up at the top level again with all your gear gone, no clothing, and cultists. I mean, that gets pretty scary. But
All right, I've got to tell you right now that it is a very, very good thing that our fifth member is not here today to see what you've produced.
I mean, it's very well thought. I think you sold yourself short. You definitely have it well thought out. I think you've got the monsters there. I mean, you get points for creativity. I like how the dungeons reflected the different ancient gods, I guess you'd call them, fertility gods. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I think it was pretty good.
I do have a question though.
Two thumbs up.
If this is a fertility goddess's temple, why do they have torture rooms? Is this a BDSM goddess? I just need to know.
well, yes, I love this. Here we go. Message from. So yes, shame on me. But no, it's I don't know.
Because that's how some people get aroused is to make them the most potent. Is to make them,
looking at the cohesiveness of it. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. You're covering a lot of bases, and I think that while it's well thought out, I think you could maybe make it a little bit more focused because you are all over the map there. It's like not just a fertility goddess. It's every fertility goddess from whatever flavor. I think your theme is being a little diluted by having so many varied items in there as far as purposes.
What I thought about is like the first level is kind of your basic, like top level, like Venus or Aphrodite, that sort of thing, right? So it's just like it's a more popular pleasure goddess. The baths and everything are there. As you go into the second level, you're starting to get into a little bit more of the more hardcore a sexual goddess or fertility goddesses. And then by the time you reach that bottom level, you're in like Leviatar land, man. You're in just that like goddess of pain sort of thing. So and it's based on an idea that like there's different levels of this church. So like at the top level, if you're just kind of like person who goes every Sunday sort of thing or whatever day they would go, it's just kind of this cool place with baths and a botanical garden. You can get massages and whatever. But then if you're initiated, you get to go down to the cleansing rooms, and that's where you get to like really experience like the deeper level of worship. And then obviously if you pass go and collect $200, you can go down to that third level and basically be part of like the cool kids.
I think there's something there if you want to keep with the fertility, because I mean, okay, so philosophically you're bringing up the difference between sex for procreation versus sex for enjoyment or whatever, right? So it would make sense that on its surface, yes, sex is a vehicle of procreation. It's a necessary component of survival, right? So it's all very above surface. It's very on the nose. It's okay. This is what you expect, right? And then as you go deeper, the deeper levels, you have people branching out from that, right? And it's got mushrooms from there. And then I think where it could get interesting is that last level, and maybe you haven't hit it there, and maybe you don't want to go there, but the point where it's not just kinky sex, where maybe there is some kind of line that's crossed, where it is a level of deviancy that the characters would be uncomfortable with, or they have a reason to go down and rescue something or stop something or whatever, where if you follow it, the through line all the way through, and we go from sex for procreation to deranged, terrible, violent,
Mhm.
the bad stuff, or is there bad stuff? I don't know. I mean, that's all the stuff that you could wrestle with your story.
Yeah, I have to think about it. Someone asked about, okay, James, explain a more popular fertility goddess. I don't know, like, I would think like the Roman and Greek ones are probably the most popular. I can't think of any other fertility goddesses.
There's some
I-
Indian fertility goddesses that are pretty interesting.
True.
I
And
can't
probably,
remember the name off the top of my head, but I know that they've got several of them, and they might be an interesting thing. But have you considered having the prime monsters in this be an incubus and succubus?
ooh, no, I actually hadn't even thought about that. I was
It
just
seems
thinking
like it
about
would fit with the theme, and it's a bit with a twisting perversion on the whole fertility by having sexual demons as the chief villains of that.
I like that idea. I have no idea at what convention I would ever get to run this at.
Well, isn't that why? I mean, like if you're talking about like Bible stuff, isn't that why sodomy is so? The sodomy meaning sex that does not result in procreation, and its most generic term. And that's why it's so frowned upon in those ancient religious texts, because it was about survival of your clan, and if you weren't fucking to procreate and increase the number of the clan, then what were you doing? You were wasting seed, you know. So that would definitely kind of can seen as like an affront to the fertility goddess is what's going on in the lower levels.
All right. No, and this is all good feedback. So definitely I will think about this a little bit more. So next session, we're actually down to week 4. And let's take a look at what week 4 holds. This actually gets more and more complex as each of the weeks go on.
Well, that is kind of the point, right?
Though, like the first week was great. I actually did everything in like a whole 10 minutes. So in week 4, you have to find or sketch out a city map. Look at equipment lists for your game. Name several shops where various kinds of items can be bought: a smith for arms, an armor, a stable for mounts. Locate and describe at least 5 of the following in a short sentence: political faction and its rival, place where the characters could lose all their money. Well, that temple would be one. A place where the people gather to hear news. So it's basically like fleshing out more of the society than the dungeon or the overall picture. So that is our that looks like it is our goal for next week. So all right, awesome. Well, Mike, excellent work as usual. Actually, I was gonna go and use Dungeon Alchemist to build out the dungeon because my wife has it, and I was just kind of like, oh. And then Mary was just like, okay, well, yeah, you can use this. Just do it at my desk. And I just got lazy because I was gonna go, I'll show them with this beautiful 3D symmetrical rendered dungeon that But
Great job, James. Great job.
Well, I couldn't do booby rooms, and that was part of the problem. Like I don't think you can do round circles in Dungeon Alchemist. So anyway.
Yeah, I didn't do any actual mapping because this is actually like what my campaign is, or I'm not doing a whole campaign. I'm just doing the dungeon for Game Hole, and so this is it. Like this is mapping the dungeon is the most important part. So I didn't get there, but I'm definitely going to use Dungeon Draft because I think that's what's giving me apprehension. I have all the stuff I need, but I'm just a terrible artist. It's like the one fucking skill I don't have. Like I can play music, I can write, I can do all kinds of stuff. I cannot draw, like to save my life. And the idea of using that program is very appealing to me. So.
Yeah, just programs like that in general are just time savers. They make and honestly, depending on how far you can do the DPI on the export, you can really just like take that to a Kinko's or something or a Staples and just have it blown up and made into a map within itself. So those are always the plus about good programs too. Because otherwise, I hate, and Terry and Mike can attest to this, is that so in our Pathfinder game, I have to draw out the maps, and it just gets really annoying after a while. But it also takes a long time to try to and money to have maps blown up that you're only going to use once. So but for a convention, convention you want to look cool, and Gamehole is definitely the convention to look cool at. But although I have to say the one weird disappointment with Gamehole was I ran one game in the adults only room because I was doing Tales from the Fallen Empire, which actually has some themes of, Conan-y themes of slavery and all kinds of stuff involved in it, which actually the scene only had like one slave market where it gets shut down anyway. But anyway, the people, I don't know, the games in that room were just a little, I don't want to call it weird, but I don't know. I just was kind of like,
dude, if you say it's weird, what were they doing?
It was, I don't think it was it was just more of the players. It was kind of like the players went in there thinking that, oh, this is the adult room, so I can become a complete tool with everything. So
I did a game in the adult room last year. It was a DCC game, and it was a little edgy, but it wasn't anything like crazy. But at one point, like, there was kids running around. Some people got real fucking indignant about it because I guess if you don't like children and you go to these things like to not be around kids, and you have a game and a adults only game, or like a later, at that point it's like 7-8 o'clock at night, and you just don't want children there, then their mere presence alone is like an affront to you or something. But I don't know. I never saw anything that graphic going on that would require behind the velvet curtain or something.
But the thing is, though, I think with the adult room too, is that if you're running content that you would be uncomfortable with children around, then children shouldn't be in there, no matter what. So, and there's just certain topics that some people just would feel uncomfortable. It's not like I'm going to take my fertility goddess there and run it at the, D&D for teens group at the library. I mean, that's, I wouldn't do that, but it's
still, if you're room.
So, it's but anyway, so cool, everyone. Great jobs. Terry, any last words on
No, I think that everything I saw is pretty awesome. Although, I don't know that I'm going to forget the images of your dungeon for maybe a couple of weeks.
Yeah, maybe I'll see about having some erotica written on about the dungeons. It would be
if you're going to go ahead and do that, you need to go ahead and modify the dungeon so that it's got like little censored spots where there's walls that don't have anything there, but it's a solid bar in the areas where it needs to be.
Absolutely. All right. So let's actually, I don't have a bumper for the next one because I always go, I'm like Mr. I want to do bumpers for everything, and then I never have bumpers for it. So I guess we can just use this one with our next conversation, which is alignment. It works. So this topic is actually suggested by a friend of of Mike and I, Greg, who actually thought about, hey, wouldn't it be neat to talk about alignment? And I kind of thought about it and said, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a hot button topic. I'll give it that. Especially if you go on Twitter, the Twitterverse is all aflame with telling you that you're a horrible person for alignment, and how alignment should be gotten rid of. And to some points, I agree, and I hate to admit that sometimes I agree with Twitter, the Twitterati, but so all right, so
Twatterity.
The twatter. Oh my God, yeah, the twatters. That's it. That's the new name I'm using. I'll agree with the twatters. So one of the biggest problems with people in alignment, and I think it really goes down to my opinion, okay, new style versus old style play. So alignment is definitely rigid guidelines, and I think an old style play where you weren't so much like, oh, I'm going to create a 50-page backstory and have all this stuff done, and spend 8 weeks on my character idea, you know, in the times before that, alignment was important because you just kind of threw a character together and you said, yeah, I'm Bill, the guy who, you know, shoveled stuff at the castle, and now I got a sword and I'm going to go out adventuring. So you kind of had to basically figure out the idea of like, well, is Bill the gong farmer? Is he, you know, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he, you know, is he kind of in between? As we're now, when I think gamers are creating more ambiguous characters, um, alignment kind of falls to the side, especially if you want to be some free-spirited D&D barista who runs around serving coffee to, you know, orcs and, you know, I don't know, suits. Then yeah, alignment kind of goes out the window, because then what is actually evil? What is actually good? So I'm thinking it's a generational and style of play thing where alignment really kind of falls into things. So I don't know. I will toss it out to the others here to get opinions or ideas or whatnot.
I have to admit that alignment has always been a big meh for me. As both a gamer and a player, I just don't care. You could understand that a particular series of humanoid aliens might be on general bad, but they might not all be bad. Your character might have some bad tendencies about them, but it seems like rather than putting it as a chaotic neutral, lawful evil, whatever, you could write out a sentence, just general, this is how my character is. This is me, and that's how I behave. And that's a much better guideline than having something that's a 9 square thing that tells you what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I always saw it just as like, I mean, there was gameplay mechanics to it, right? Like if you're a paladin, you're going to have to act a certain way, or if you're sorcerer beholden to this type of demon or what, you know what I mean? Like in DCC, when you're a cleric and you get deity disapproval, you have, depending on what your god is, you have to act a certain way to try to lower that number. So in that sense, like, yeah, I think it's got its place. But if you're really that shitty at character creation to where you need that to like tell you like how to fully create something in your mind, like I guess if you need it, go ahead. But it's unless I was playing a cleric or something, I don't think I ever paid attention to that stuff really.
To Pat's point, and this is based off my own experience. So, you know, obviously other people have other experiences. Alignment for the longest time never really came into play. It was never something that was really considered or even factored into gameplay unless you did something that was obviously out of line with your character, like I don't know, a paladin using poison, or a cleric backstabbing. You know, something that was clearly something that your character class wouldn't allow. It seems like nowadays, and this is only my perception, my observation, people seem to, some people, I'll say some people or some stories I've read, people use alignment as something to hide behind to justify their character's actions. And it's usually something to either screw over the other party players or to screw over the GM. And they say, well, that's my alignment. That's what my character would do. And I don't know if that's, you know, it's not fair to paint with a big brush and say everybody does that. But there are some people that are like, well, that's my character. That's what my character would do. And, you know, he's screwing over everybody else in the party. So
if you could do like, and I'm not creative enough to write this, but if you could do like the 12 type of gamers that you meet at cons, one of them would be the guy that inevitably plays the thief that doesn't do shit all game long. Because he's like, well, I'm a thief. I'm a coward. I'm going to hide in the back. I'm not doing anything. I slink into the shadows. And it's like, do something where there's like 6 of us here and we're trying to get through this dungeon for the love of God. And they're just like, I've had so many of those freaking people. And I'll be honest, it's always the older guys too. It's always dudes like 40 plus that have been playing this. It's always the second edition game. and it's always like some like crank that pulls that shit. And I get it. Like, okay, you're a thief. You're not going to be running into battle. I get it. Okay, you're role playing. You're going to be talking shit behind people's backs and stuff. But you're like, come on, like, don't do it like that. Like, let's be functional to the party. Don't use it as an excuse just to do nothing and never make rolls. And that's how you're going to play the game today. Why did you show up?
We
So
never had that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to quickly say my question is, and I couldn't find out, when was alignment introduced and what was the purpose behind it? Because those are the two questions I have, and I couldn't really get a clear answer from what I Googled.
Well, I will give my 2 cents on it, which is probably completely wrong. So the original D&D alignment base was, I believe, only
The 9-grid stuff was in the first edition.
Yeah,
so
because
before the first edition, it was something a little bit more primitive.
Yeah, it was 3 points. It was
chaotic,
lawful, and neutral.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Which actually I prefer, because honestly, when you start adding in those tags like evil and good, you really narrow it down. Because if you come from a lawful society, and that could really be anything. I mean, if you think about it, the Melniboneans, from the Elric books, they were the most evil bastards in the universe, and but they were a lawful society.
They had rules.
Yeah, they had some serious rules, and they were horrible, but they were lawful. So I think the 3-point one is a little bit easier. But then to go to the initial question, I want to say it's a holdover from. I want to say it's a holdover from wargaming, but I could be completely wrong.
I think it is too. When they first started coming up with the idea of you playing a general in your campaign, in your war game, that was one of the components they put in. But I didn't find anything that really reinforced that. So I can't really say.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a good question, and anyone who ends up watching, after the fact and knows the answer to this question, please leave it in the comment, because it's actually a good thing. But, and I think initiative really only stretches into D&D, because if you look at other older games, I don't think Star Frontiers had an alignment system.
I don't remember one.
Yeah. I'm just going through like a lot of old school games in my head, and I don't think a lot of them actually had alignment system. I think it was just really D&D. I don't even think Gamma World had one, did it?
I don't think so.
I don't recall it. No.
Is it the time that I rolled? Oh, there's Gamma World. Hold on.
Well, while you're looking for Gamma World, I'm going to make another different comment. When I started playing in the military back in the 80s. We had some people that would come in and join the large group of players and try to play like Pat was describing. And it was a peer pressure thing. It wasn't the GM coming down on them. It was all of the players saying, if you can't be part of the group and play as part of the group, then you're not playing with us. That's not something that could work at a convention. But when you're playing with a large group of people, like in a military rec hall, if you can't play as part of the group, then you need to go play by yourself.
Yeah, it's just simple. If you can't be an adult, then you shouldn't be. So I'm just flipping through Alpha Dawn right now, Star Frontiers. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm not seeing anything that even remotely looks like alignment. So another old TSR game doesn't have alignment. Let's take a look at Gamma World. Now this is 2nd edition, but
New Country guy wants to know about GURPS.
Oh,
I'm trying to remember about GURPS, and I don't really remember alignment for GURPS either. It's been a while.
Do I have GURPS on my shelf over there?
I've got a pile of books, but they're all packed away since I've cleaned my office.
I
don't have access to it.
I rotate my books, and actually I do have GURPS, but I think it is in rotation at the moment, meaning that it goes into the basement while I pull up new books. and keep them on my shelf for a while, and then they go
You
back
obviously
down.
need to dedicate an entire house to your gaming supply.
I do.
Probably one shaped like a fertility goddess.
Yeah.
There you go. I need you to show this map to your architect, saying, "I need a house like this."
Yeah, call up the Discovery Channel. Use your contacts in the media. To get,
I'll just what do they call that? I can't think of the group that like goes out and builds houses for people. I can go to Humanity
Habitat
for
for Humanity?
Humanity, yeah, and just go, hey, this would be really great for a house. Build it. No, actually, Gamma World does not have alignment either. But to answer your question, country guy, new country guy. Actually, I won't use your. I know who you are. Your real name. I just won't use it on screen. Because it's we all have aliases. Anyway, yeah, GURPS. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, Palladium had them. That is correct. Palladium did have them. Palladium. Oh God, Mike, you played Palladium, right? Or is that Matt? Matt is our Palladium.
I played once a long, long time ago.
Okay, yeah, because I think they had something like Scrupulous and other assorted things for the Palladium system. They actually had a huge alignment choice, but it wasn't like lawful good evil. It was actually this really very cool breadth of alignments.
I think it's really good having tags that you could use to describe how your character thinks and behaves. And if you've got a wide selection of them, I think that's great. I think that actually suits.
It definitely, I mean, it works, but also think about genres too. Look at let's see, Tally tells us each Palladium thing was 12 rules, like a code of conduct for each topic. Yeah, I just remember that it was, and I think that's just, yep. Oh, okay, Tally put up top here, principled, unscrupulous. Yeah, they were a little bit more easier to swallow than really putting you into a narrow bucket. But still, the question goes, I think and again, I'll just say this, in modern gaming, I really don't feel, I think we've kind of grown out of that a lot, unless you're playing a game that really penalizes you for staying within the rails. Again, like Pat mentioned, DCC, right? So alignment has a built-in punishment system that if you go against your god's alignment, you will not get spells. Your spells will get screwed, or you'll get some sort of like in-game punishment.
If you're a clerk and your who you're trying to heal is of an opposite alignment, it does less hit die, as opposed to if you're the same alignment too.
Yeah. So I mean, there I think alignment, if it's part of the rules, really can add something to it. Or even like AD&D First Edition, Paladins. I think we I don't know if anyone, I think someone mentioned that, where if you go against your lawful good alignment, then you just find yourself a fighter. You're no longer, you no longer have your paladin powers. But that's even changed in 5th edition. Now you can actually play like unaligned paladins, which, they don't have to be good. They can be whatever they want to be. So, and then space games. All right, so if you're playing something like Star Wars, yeah, I think that's definitely something where there's good and evil. And even then, that could be shades of gray, because, you have the Empire. Yeah, the Empire may have a few good people in it, but probably not the entirety of. And then again, the Rebellion. There was a lot of bastards in the Rebellion who were just doing it for either profit or, I mean, Han Solo, before he became General Solo in the second movie and suddenly started showing himself to be a good person, he was just doing this for the money. He was going to get paid by Princess Leia for the rescue and for helping out the rebels destroy the Death Star. And ultimately, I think he found out that it was his best interest to come back and take out the Death Star. Because didn't he leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, you guys go destroy. I got my money. I'm out of here. So I guess even then, Star Wars, you can't even really place the good evil tags on that because everyone had kind of their own.
Well, the Jedis are good, the Empire's bad, and then the smugglers or scoundrels or whatever are kind of the neutral. They're self-serving. You know what I mean?
Did you see the movie Solo?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw it once.
Yeah, me too.
I have to say that I actually liked it quite a bit because I didn't go into it with a lot of preconceptions about it. And I think that it was a much more nuanced building of Solo than just the caricature we saw in the first Star Wars movie. So I like characters in role-playing games that are more nuanced, that they've got their good parts, they've got their bad parts. And so if we're talking about alignment, I'd much rather have the Solo version of Han Solo than the other Star Wars movies.
You know, like going to another space franchise. Let's look at Star Trek, right? So, I mean, are the Federation really the good guys? You know, if it depends on whose perspective you're looking at it. You know, the Klingons think they're these wonderful warriors, and everything that they do is amazing and for the greater good of like their people. And oh my God, what's the name? Kalis? Yeah, the glory of Kalis. The Romulans, who are the most sneakiest bastards in the world, you know, have their reasons why they do things. The same with Vulcan. So I mean, can you really point and say who are the good guys in Star Trek?
One of the flaws that they have with excuse me with the way that they portray those races, if you look at the old series, it was flipped around. The Romulans were the ones that were more honorable in ways, and the Klingons were scum.
Yeah.
And they just decided to flip the coin on its head. And that's like alignment treating an entire race as one thing. It's easy to flip a switch. Suddenly what was good is bad. What is bad is good. And I don't like that kind of everybody is this.
Well, and I think they kind of showed that towards the end. So Deep Space Nine, which I just finished watching again for like the third time, just my favorite of the Star Trek series. But look at the story arc with the Cardassians. Like they ended up just being they were the Nazis. They had basically invaded Bajor. They kept them pretty much as slaves for like 50 years, and finally they rose up. And even after that, the Cardassians were these horrible people who kept trying to do dickish things to get ahead. But then towards the end, they became freedom fighters, and you know, their whole civilization was destroyed because they said, screw this. We're not going to go along with evil anymore. We're going to, you know, we're a proud people, and we're not going to put up with this when the Dominion took over. So, you know, everyone should be able to have a redemption story arc, I guess. And
Gul Dukat is disappointed in you.
Gul Dukat was a jerk, man. Oh my God, that man was horrible. Anyway, sorry. Now I'm just going off on tangents here. So, but anyway, yeah. I mean, to end, I guess, to close up on this discussion on alignment is honestly, it's a cool thing if you're going to use it correctly and not use it for a GM. GMs, in my opinion, should not be using it to be the I don't know, to set super strict guidelines for the players, because I've seen it used like that at convention games, you know, where it's like someone's getting out of line and suddenly they're bringing up alignment just in order to kind of put you back into place. But I don't think it should also be something that you know. But anyway, yeah, don't use it for evil, because it's just gonna, you know, screw things up in the end. And looks like we have some Star Trek talk going over here in chat. Let's see. So, Talia, I'm just going to go ahead and share the conversation that's going on here. So much of Trek builds on political real life examples in their era. Soviets. Oh, absolutely. Um, I 100% agree on that statement there. Right, you know, and I won't get into my Roddenberry was a visionary and an amazing person, but you know, he's kind of one of my heroes in media. I mean, the man was progressive. He attacked a lot of social issues at the time, but and I'll get off this high horse in a second, but I just want to say that Star Trek was amazing at really putting out critical thinking for its time. In the original series, I don't want to say Next Generation too much because Next Generation I felt was kind of whimsical at best, but then it really kind of got back into it with Deep Space Nine. Um, but I think it's the writers, to be honest with you. And Roddenberry's like so in the original series, Deep Space Nine. There was a lot of political things that were being talked about in those shows, but the writers were so good at making you think about them. It wasn't like in your face, wagging a finger at you, going, "Oh, here's what's going on. You need to conform to being better about it." It actually told you a story, and then suddenly, after a while, you're going, "Wait a minute, I think I get that, or I understand that a lot better," or that, you know, and maybe you didn't. Maybe you're just still kind of an idiot jerk who still believed in horrible things. But I felt that the way Star Trek originally was written was in a way to make you think about it. And that's where I think a lot of new television kind of falls off of that, is that now it's very much a
Preachy.
soapbox media. Yeah, it's very soapbox. It's like, we're not trying to tell you a good story. We're just telling you that this is how you should be, or this is what life is. And but anyway, that's probably, you know, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but going into Roddenberry and Star Trek, it was a reflection of the times. It always has been, it always will be, but I think it's just a matter of who the writers are at the time to tell those stories, is where Star Trek either is knocks it out of the ballpark, or just becomes like, all right, next. And if you haven't been watching Picard, season 3 is freaking awesome. So if you're not watching it, start from the beginning. Season 1 is good. Season 2 is and like season 3, I can't stop watching it. Like after every episode, I'm just like, I wish I had another hour to burn to continue watching this, because this is amazing.
Yeah, I stopped midway through season 2 because I just no, can't do it. But I haven't finished season 3 yet.
Yeah, good. I mean, season 2 is something you kind of just got to hold your breath and just go, all right, fine, it's over. But then season 3 is just it makes up for everything else season 2 just actually failed on. But anyway, okay, so we're gonna switch gears again. Let me bring up our bumpers, because I think I'm just going to continue rambling here. So let's get on to the next bit. And so Pat, after the bumper, do you want me to play the trailer right off, or do you want to introduce it some?
No, let's go right to the trailer.
All right, so here we go for our next and last segment.
Tonight might not be such a good night to take a ride on a roller coaster.
It's about money, Harry. There's a bomb in the park. Don't underestimate it.
Tonight might be the night he turns this carnival into a graveyard.
The payment will be $1 million. We're to fill it with unmarked bills and Calder's to have it with him. Tell your friends I'm about to give them another reminder of how vulnerable they are.
Time is running out. It may be too late.
That's him.
To stop the nightmare.
Could have planted some. Call him. Clear out the passengers.
An unforgettable ride of terror starring George Siegel, Richard Widmark, Timothy Bottoms, and Henry Fonda in the thrilling tradition of Airport and Earthquake. Don't be afraid to scream. It may be the last sound you'll ever hear. Roller Coaster.
All right, turning the amusement park into a graveyard. You gotta love that.
Right.
So,
That's got to be the 60s or 70s. I don't think that's even the 80s.
No, that was 1977. It actually came out the 2 weeks after Star Wars. So it released theatrically June 10th, 1977. Roller Coaster is clearly the more grindhouse of the two, unfortunately. It's an exploitation / disaster film that was right up there, as the trailer says, with Earthquake, Towering Inferno, and Airport 77. It was directed by James Goldstone, a working man's director who tackled TV episodes from everything from Star Trek to Outer Limits and The Fugitive. And it was written by a trio of writers, most notable for working on Columbo, Murder, She Wrote. 1977's Roller Coaster is a competent, old-school Hollywood production about a madman killing people with amusement park rides. It's especially effective. It's an especially effective movie if, like me, you see roller coasters for what they really are, death simulators. The whole purpose of a roller coaster ride is to make your body feel like it's about to be crushed or sent sailing through the air. The sensation you get from being on a roller coaster is, oh shit, I'm about to die. So they're death simulators. I don't do the whole roller coaster thing. And trust me, I take plenty of risks with my own life. I'm not someone that plays it safe for colors between the lines. But even I am not crazy to ride one of those things. So to me, roller coaster doesn't play so much as an exploitative cash grab on youth culture and the disaster movie craze of the 1970s. It's a fucking documentary about how unsafe roller coasters really are. As the trailer suggests, the film stars the late George Segal, whom most recently people would remember from Goldberg's. He plays Harry Calder, a rogue building inspector who had just inspected the roller coaster that goes haywire in the opening scene, killing a whole slew of people. Young Helen Hunt plays his daughter. And the reason I found about this movie is because the musical group Sparks makes a cameo during the film's final set piece. And the group Sparks is a band that I had never heard of. But for my Y2K Movies podcast, we did an Edgar Wright retrospective. And Edgar Wright had done a documentary about the Sparks. And the Sparks had said that their only regret creatively, they're one of these groups, kind of like They Might Be Giants or whatever, that had a very unique creative trajectory, that they played by their own rules. They did their own thing. Their only regret was that they let their label talk them into doing a cameo in this movie. And they thought the movie was terrible. But from the scenes that they showed of the roller coasters flying off the tracks and people being crushed to death, that made me want to run out and get this movie. And I'm glad I did. You can find the movie on YouTube. Shout Factory did a pretty decent Blu-ray release. I highly recommend it for fans of disaster films, niche exploitation movies, or people just looking for confirmation bias that roller coasters are death traps that should be avoided at all costs.
all right. Well,
Did you say Henry Fonda was in the movie? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, the old one. He's like the FBI agent or something.
Wow.
all right. So Dana has a question.
Is it cheesy? Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, but it's from the era where, like, you know, Planet of the Apes was like a studio movie made by like real directors and shit. Like this, like Logan's Run was like a real movie that like MGM made or something, you know. So yes, this is an exploitation movie about the disaster craze, which was like at its height. The 70s disaster movie thing was like at its height then. And then they also try to, you know, what are kids into, right? What are kids doing these days? Oh, they're all going to amusement parks. Okay, so we're gonna do a disaster movie at an amusement park. We're gonna get a guy that shot a bunch of TV shows, like I said, Outer Limits, The Fugitive, Star Trek, and then we're gonna get the guys that write Columbo to crank out the script. And it's a very competent production of a very ridiculous idea, and that's something that kind of only exists. You know what it reminded me of a lot was Mandingo, when the studios were all making blaxploitation movies, and then like I forget who it was like, well, let's do like a blaxploitation Gone with the Wind, and they made Mandingo, which is a freaking monstrosity. It's one of like the most tone deaf, whatever. But yes, so to answer your question, it's cheesy, but it's worth watching.
So talking about hiring the writers to do this, it sort of reminded me of a crossover event that happened with CSI Vegas and Two and a Half Men, where the shows traded writers to write. They had the comedy writers write an episode of CSI Vegas, and the CSI Vegas writers write an episode of Two and a Half Men. And that was absolutely trippy and funny as hell, and you should watch it.
That's really funny. Was the Two and a Half Men episode funny? Were they able to write jokes?
There was a dead body in the Two and a Half Men show.
Oh my God.
They ran across a dead body. So they actually brought some of the tropes across. They didn't try to do it as at them writing a comedy. They said, we're the CSI writers, so we're going to write Two and a Half Men with some flavoring from CSI.
One of my favorite stoner comedy movies of the 21st century is a movie called How High, and it features members of the Wu-Tang Clan as guys that smoke their friend's ashes, and that brings him back as a ghost, and then they can cheat on their SATs, and they go into Harvard, right? And it's a fish out of water story. It's hysterical, but it's written by two of the writers on West Wing. Not Aaron Sorkin, but like the staff writers, right? And they must have been Harvard graduates that went there, and you know, because I know a lot of comedy writers and stuff all come from those schools. But I think it goes to show, like, if you're a good writer, you might have, you know, Terry, like, you know, you might have more than one genre in your back pocket. You're not necessarily just going to be, although I will say Rollercoaster does play like an episode of Columbo. Like it is very much like that. You can see
You
that.
see, I've just got this one question.
One more question. Yeah.
So I'm going to play something. I don't know if we're going to be able to, damn it. Hold on. If we're going to be able to see it, but this, I don't know. This is what it kind of reminds me of. So let me see if I can share this. All right, share. We'll say, can we do back? Let's see. Let's do screen and window. And this, so I don't know if you'll be able to hear. It's 20 seconds long, but this is honestly what's reminded me of. So. Oh wow! It didn't do the full thing. Anyway,
was that John Landis Kentucky Fried Movie? Or
yes.
Yes. Okay.
There was actually a longer opening to that because it was like Catholic High School Girls in Trouble was the name of the movie, but I gotta pull a full trailer from that. But yeah, I mean, I think Kentucky Fried Movie was an incredible movie, just showing all the like incredible insanity of movie making during the 70s. It had like trailers for a movie called Cleopatra Schwartz about the like blaxploitation like hotshot woman and her like Hasidic Jew boyfriend who would travel around and fight crime. It's just it's an amazing movie. If maybe that's something that we should definitely just take a look at someday in the future. But the one thing I have to say about Rollercoaster, was what the hell's a rogue building inspector?
Right. So I think because he's kind of like a Columbo type character, he's a building inspector. And he gets called into this because the opening scene, there's the roller coaster derailment, and he had just checked that roller coaster like the week before. So they call him in, and they're like, "Harry, you just checked this thing. What the fuck is going on?" And he's like, "I'm telling you, Frank. I know my job. Don't tell me my job. I checked that thing." And unwilling to believe that he meant, they're like, "Oh, you're missing stuff. You got to you're on vacation, And but he doesn't believe that he made a mistake. He believes that something happened, and that there was a catalyst for that derailment, and that what he starts his own investigation that eventually the FBI get involved in this whole thing. But
Well,
it was such a crazy. As someone that like I worked for the Department of Buildings, like it's just so ridiculous that like that guy is going to be the fucking hero of the movie, but he is. So.
Did Kiss Phantom of the Park come out around the same time? Because didn't that have similar themes, or maybe not?
I want to say that was 78 because I know that Kiss Phantom of the Park was supposed to be like Kiss plus Star Wars, like Star Wars or something. Hold on, let me look that up.
Because for some reason, I remember Rollercoasters being threatened to be blown up, and then Kiss playing music and making everything a lot better.
Kiss was 78, and it was there was going to be Robot Kiss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it might have taken place. Honestly, I've seen it, and I'm a Kiss fan too. But yeah, no, it does take place at Magic Mountain.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Talking about Columbo, there's a show that my wife watched recently called Poker Face.
Yes.
It has Natasha Lyonne in it, and it's very Columbo-like.
Yes. Oh, they did that on purpose. Yeah. I thought the same thing. I watched a couple of, same thing with my wife. I came home and she's watching. I always say my roommate watches certain shit so I don't have to. And I'll just be walking around and it'll be on and I'll be like, oh, what's this? And yeah, I watched one episode with her and I'm like, this is freaking Columbo. And then I looked it up and yes, that was a very conscious decision that they made with that show.
She
Excellent,
even talks
though.
like Columbo, the whole rambling
Right.
conversation thing. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yes, much better than Rollercoaster. I will say this: if you can only watch one thing, and it's either Poker Face or Rollercoaster, watch Poker Face. It's a much better show. Great cameos too, or great like actor of the week. It's like Stunt Cat. It's like Columbo, where they would have random actors from the 70s and stuff come in, like guest stars that week. Every episode has guest stars.
Oh, that's neat. But obviously in Poker Face, it's not 70s actors coming in as guest stars because they would either be dead or...
It's Ryan Wilson who did, or Johnson or whatever. The guy that did Last Jedi, but he also did Brick, which is a really great... Rian Johnson, who does a really great noir movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. What else did he do?
He did the first the prequel to Glass Onion. What was it? I'm trying to remember the movie.
Knives Out.
Knives Out, that's it.
And he did Glass Onion.
Oh my! Yeah, he did Glass Onion too, but I was saying Knives Out was a much better one. I went to the theaters with middling expectations for it and was just floored by Knives Out. It was like the best movie I had ever seen in like 10 years.
Right on.
Wow. We actually have to like basically cull a list together of like movies and go on it. Just like maybe just even do a movie discussion episode at some point. Because I am a huge fan of Grindhouse and blaxploitation movies, and it's been years since I've actually sat down to watch things like Dolomite or Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, or things like that.
Did you see the making of Dolomite movie with Eddie Murphy?
Yes, that was phenomenal.
Movie. Yes.
Yeah. That Rudy Ray Moore was an interesting person too. I mean, there's a book that I don't know if it was him or interviews with him talking about blaxploitation in general, and it was actually fairly interesting just to kind of see, because again he was a comedian. I mean, it wasn't like he went into this going like, because so is it Mario or oh god, who did Sweet
Melvin?
Back?
I think
Melvin
it's Melvin.
Van Peebles. Yeah,
Mario's his kid.
Yep. And that was actually meant to be a very serious piece. That, as campy as it kind of turned out to be, he did that as a serious piece. Dolomite was not done to be as a serious piece. That was definitely. And every subsequent movie after that, like if you look at The Human Tornado, or
Disco Godfather was always Avenging Disco Godfather. That was always my favorite of the post Dolomite movies.
Yep. I don't think I got a chance to watch Petey Wheatstraw.
Straw the Devil's Son-in-Law. Yeah.
which was done. But then then I think Hollywood just basically took the idea of the blaxploitation film and then just really kind of gentrified it. So if you looked at things like this is a whole discussion for an episode, but if you look at things like Shaft was definitely done not in the spirit of blaxploitation movies, but trying to be a more palatable.
Well, it was a white detective in the original script.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
and they took it and they rewrote it for a black guy because of blaxploitation. You know what I mean?
Just talking about Shaft.
Yeah, I mean, they rewrote it a little bit. It's not like they just changed white detective to black detective, but like, yeah, that's originally what it was. They had a script. John Shaft was supposed to be a white guy, and then they were like, you know what, let's try to capitalize on this.
This is totally off base on me, but I'm gonna have to ask it anyway. You've got the blaxploitation where you've got that type of movie. Have there ever been any white exploitation?
Oh,
movies?
yes.
Oh yeah,
has.
Burt Reynolds, the fucking White Lightning, the hillbilly ones. You know what I mean? Like I think that's what I would say. The Burt Reynolds redneck movies of that
That's
era.
a good one.
Smoking
I
the
wasn't
Bandit.
sure if they exist, but I'll take that as yeah.
Smoking the Bandits for white Southern people what Dolomite was for blacks in Chicago. Probably.
Actually, one that made it very mainstream is Dukes of Hazzard, which is actually based on a whitesploitation film that honestly I can't remember the name of, but Dukes of Hazzard was basically kind of that movie with the serial numbers filed off. And I'll actually give a kind of a hello to ex-girlfriend of mine, Jen, who her and I used to watch, like we watched it religiously, like over and over again. But it was a film called Preacher Man and Witter Woman, which was also about this basically this preacher guy who always ended up with like hot hillbilly women who ran booze, and his like accomplice who they called Witter Woman, who was again another just like hillbilly chick, baddie. But oh yeah, Terry, no, there is a whole genre out there of whitesploitation films.
Alrighty then.
And they always used to have to deal with like booze running too for some reason. Like there was this just
the one where out in the back country and they goes, "Then you squeal like a pig." Banjo music. That wouldn't be one of them, would it?
No, Deliverance. I don't think Deliverance falls into like whitesploitation.
Just look at anything Joe Don Baker did, and if you look at like the Joe Don Baker posters, like Walking Tall or Mitchell, it's like him with a big stick, like hitting somebody, and that's like Shaft Goes to Africa, and it's Shaft with like a big stick hitting a lion. It's like the same shit. Those beautiful painted posters, that they used to do back in the day. Don't do them so much
God,
anymore.
those were amazing. Now I actually want to go on to I have to do so I'll do this during the week, and maybe for the next episode I'll show it, but go on something like Midjourney or AI and have them recreate blaxploitation movie posters.
Seems like Rambo might be a white exploitation, maybe a little bit.
Rambo was kind of in that. Rambo was actually, oh God, we could just.
There was a whole series of Vietnam revenge type things going on.
I was talking about this on Y2K, how like growing up in the 80s, I remember there being a plethora of Vietnam movies. This was a whole entire genre in and of itself. Mm-hmm. They weren't always positive. They weren't always pro-war, pro-government, or pro-military. But that was us dealing with collectively, as the country's psyche, dealing with Vietnam. We had a Vietnam movie genre. There's like 3 fucking 9/11 movies. I can't believe there's not more 9/11 movies. You would think that, there's like United 93. Even Oliver Stone made a 9/11 movie, and it's like, it's about the last 2 guys to come out. Like that's and maybe now we feel it as exploitative. We don't want to do it. I don't know what the deal is, but there's definitely been a shift in Hollywood making post-war movies.
Just think of how few movies we've had that directly dealt with the 20 years we were in Afghanistan. Right. Comparatively, very few.
Jarhead, like I don't know.
I can think of maybe half a dozen, maybe a bit more than that, that explicitly dealt with that. But
Right.
it's just considering how many Vietnam movies I saw as a kid, there's not nearly as many.
Right. And you had like good, like Deer Hunter, like
Oh
legitimate,
yeah.
Apocalypse Now, stuff that won Academy Awards, stuff that was
Mhm.
prestige studio, really great creative works of art. And they just don't do that anymore. I don't know.
Maybe
Yeah,
I don't know
they
if they
just
were
don't
too
love the smell of
critical.
napalm in the morning anymore.
You know what? Honestly, I think it might be, and this is me putting on my tinfoil hat again. The movie studios, if you want to make an action movie, if you want to make a Transformers movie, right, and you need helicopters, who are you going to? You're going to the government, right? If you're doing a movie that needs tanks, where are you getting those tanks from? You're going to the government. So they're going to say to you, okay, if you want 4 tanks for Transformers 7, let's see the script that you're working on about Benghazi. Let's take a look at that first. And if we don't like that script, you're not getting those tanks. That's one way to look at it, because we use more military assets in action movies now than we used to. So I think that there's more of a desire to keep those lines happy. I don't know.
Yeah, because
I know that
think
when they were making Top Gun, the new Top Gun Maverick movie, I know that when they were making that, the government had some input on what could be shown out of what was filmed, because they were cutting the edges of the filming crew was in areas where there was classified materials and things had to be cut. They seized one of the, I think the director had his phone taken from them because he saw something he shouldn't, and the stuff deleted off of it and then handed back.
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean that whole movie's a recruitment video.
And there was
I liked it.
There was pushback from some of the media about what they called the jingoistic flavor of the movie. Society has changed somewhat. They don't view war movies so positively anymore.
Yeah, but but that goes back to the Vietnam movie thing. Like those movies were very critical, and they won Academy Awards. Everyone loved them, and we don't make that. And
Yeah.
but I don't mind stuff like Top Gun. I love that movie growing up.
A certain segment of the society, of the media, was pushing back because Top Gun Maverick was portraying the military in too much of a positive light, and they didn't like it.
I don't know. It was a Star Wars ripoff, bringing us full circle again.
Yeah, I mean,
the Death Star trench run.
because the two movies that I think I really like, going back, is like Platoon. I think Platoon was, showing some horrors of Vietnam, and then you get into Oliver Stone did. Oh my God,
Was that Full Metal Jacket?
Full Metal Jacket. That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to think of. Which
That's Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, was it Stanley Kubrick?
Oliver Stone.
Okay.
Yeah, Oliver Stone did Platoon.
Okay. But both of those movies didn't particularly show the Vietnam experience in a very positive light at all. Those went straight for...
If I remember
There was
correctly, Oliver Stone said that Platoon was largely based off of his own personal experiences when he served in Vietnam.
Oh,
Right. Yeah, he's supposed to be
wow.
the Charlie Sheen character because he came from a wealthy background and he enlisted. He did not get drafted. That was his choice to go. Same thing with Charlie Sheen's character in the movie.
Yeah.
You got Hamburger Hill. That's another good one.
Yeah, it wasn't an autobiography or a documentary, I guess it'd be called. But the movie was largely based off of his life and his personal experiences at Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. And there was another huge Oscar winner too in the later '80s or whenever it came out.
There was
Then
also Hamburger Hill was a big one.
Yep.
Yeah. Tropic Thunder? No.
Oh, that's a totally different kind of movie, and that was a great one.
There's this classic lines in there that I can't repeat in good faith, but you never go full.
Yeah, you never see that movie now. I was watching it on like TBS, I don't know, a couple years ago, and it even was it blew my mind that movie is as current as it is. How much we've changed to where you would never see that movie made now.
And actually, both someone, because every once in a while someone gets a bug up their butt about Robert Downey Jr.'s character.
Yeah.
And but it's always defended. They will come out and defend that movie left and right for what it was. And Yeah, Daniel, Tropic Thunder all the way. Absolutely. Like I can't even explain because it wasn't particularly it was making fun of the things
Of
that,
the actors that would do that, the actors that would
yeah.
do blackface and think that they could pull that off because they're so into the thespian role, you know.
Or okay, was it Ben Stiller? No, right? Who was the
He was in it, yeah.
yeah, he was so he played Simple Jack. Oh my god, Simple Jack was just but again, showing and oh my god, Tom Cruise's character in that
Yeah.
was just and he wasn't even credited, I don't think.
I don't know. They kept talking about doing a spin-off of him with it's Les Grossman or something was his
Yeah.
character's name, and they were going to do a whole spin-off of it. But I'm like, there's no. First of all, that's a joke. That's like a 5-minute joke. You're going to stretch that into a 90-minute movie. How are you not going to get like incredibly anti-Semitic if you try to do that for 90 minutes straight? Like, even I'm like, yeah, just be glad what you got away with what you got away with. You know.
Yeah.
You're not Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks could pull that shit off. You can't. You're Tom Cruise.
There you go. The TV edition of Blazing Saddles, all 5 minutes and 16 seconds that could be on broadcast television.
Yeah. Oh my god. So, yeah, I haven't even tried to watch. Do they even show Blazing Saddles on normal TV?
Yeah, my wife saw it, but I don't know where she saw it. I don't know what she got it off, and we watched it recently.
That History of the World Part 2 was pretty solid.
I haven't watched that yet. Is it worth watching?
It's because it's half-hour episodes, and I think there's 6 of them or something. But
it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, Blazing Saddles is probably one of my favorite Mel Brooks movies. Actually, believe it or not, this may be a sore spot with some, but I wasn't a big fan of Spaceballs. Like Spaceballs really just didn't do it for me.
You want to know a bit of Spaceballs trivia?
Sure.
He asked George if he could go ahead and do this spoof of Star Wars. And the only criteria was he couldn't have the main hero dressed like Han Solo.
Yes.
That was the rule. So he dressed him like Indiana Jones instead.
Yes. Right, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
And isn't his name Starkiller?
I can't remember his name. I don't know.
And that's the original. That was like the original Luke Skywalker name or something. I don't know.
Starkiller was the original Luke Skywalker name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Robin Hood Men in Tights, I thought was good. I mean, I guess thinking back on it, Spaceballs History of the World Part 1 is still to this day, like all those various things still have cracked me up, especially the whole Roman thing. And how they just tied that all together too, all the but there was a History of the World Part 2 trailer at the end of History of the World Part 1, which I don't know I don't want to hear spoilers, but do they address any of those things from the trailers, like Hitler on Ice or Jews in Space?
I think they do a Jews in Space throwback, or they.
I'm almost sure that they do something. They at least head tip toward Hitler on Ice. I'm not sure they actually do it, but I think there's a head tip that direction.
Yeah, it's still just amazing stuff. So I actually look forward to watching. It's just right now I'm trying to get through all the stuff because rewatched Deep Space Nine, so now just trying to catch up with Picard, finish The Mandalorian. So Mandalorian, as always, never is always pleases. But yeah, History of World Part 2 is on that list, as well as I think actually no, I did finish watching Who We Are in the Shadows. Oh god, the vampire one. The
oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
What We Are in the Shadows.
Yeah,
that's just always amazing. But I think we are kind of all right. So it is going on 10:30. So I think it's time to wrap up. But we should, maybe next. I almost feel like next episode we should actually do some more movie discussion, because I don't know. I said to go down a rabbit hole, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But we'll coordinate it offline and see. Maybe we'll talk about Gygax 75 and then just go on to like a movie rant or something. So that'd be kind of fun. But anyway, let's go ahead and wrap things up. So anyway, thanks everyone for watching. I saw there's been some great discussion going on. So Dana, Rachel, Daniel, like everyone, Tally, who had to actually leave, but great discussion, and thank you, and hopefully keep that going, because I love just talking to the audience and such. But yeah, so I will just kind of bring up some stuff here. So again, JC, and we are Grindhouse Media, so if you definitely find it in your hearts, that's patreon.com/grindhouse_media. Actually, I have some other stuff to add up here too, because believe it or not, if you want to wear our funky logos, we do actually have a Teespring shop, but I don't have the link for that. And some of our alternative play stuff is a little suggestive. So if you want to wear something sexy and suggestive, definitely toss that on. So you are watching us here on YouTube, and I believe there's some people watching us on Twitch. So thank you. And that's it for me. Terry, anything you want to say?
I'm Terry Mixon. I write science fiction, and you were talking multiple genres. I wrote a post-apocalyptic novel as well, so I have a few genres in my back pocket. You can find me on Amazon. I'm the only Terry Mixon writing science fiction.
All right. Anything on fertility goddess temples? Just
nothing on fertility god temples. I'll just keep that in my back pocket for later.
All right. Awesome. Pat.
You can find me on Twitter, Dr. X2112.
All right. And GM Mike.
Hi, I'm GM Mike.
All right. Awesome. Everyone, thank you for watching. Have a good night. And also, we are going to start putting the audio of this on Anchor. So if you care to listen to us ramble on, although the movie part would be kind of hard to watch, but anyway, but still, I'll go ahead and get that set up, and I'll give the link for that next week. So anyway, everyone have a good night.
Nighty night.
And